Meckler says, in the wake of Dobbs, radical federalism is the only way back to civility. And I agree. Federalism is the way. We have to give it, the states their rights because the country is too divisive. People can't agree on anything. So, we have to go back to what the original founders wanted, which was states' rights. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description, a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. And there's also a link to my merch store. Let's talk about this news. Following the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, something strange happened. The largest and most vocal protests happened in Washington, D.C., in states such as New York and California, where abortion access is likely to remain as permissive as it is today. Once people figure out a little bit of federalism is in play, the protests are not sustainable. The outrage will wane when people passionate about the right to abortion on demand throughout pregnancy and without apology realize most of them live in states where it's still available. Y'all know how I feel about the whole abortion thing. I'm totally against it. It's black genocide, and that's basically what it is. Y'all know how I feel. I've been talking about Margaret Sanger forever before it even became mainstream, or people knew about about her and her Planned Parenthood back when they were trying to say it was a conspiracy theory, and now Planned Parenthood straight up admitting Margaret Sanger's ideology and how she feel about black people and why they put abortion clinics. The majority of them, over 80% of them, are in black neighborhoods because they wanted to exterminate. She wanted to exterminate black people. It's black genocide. More black people killed from abortion than from the Holocaust. So this is technically a genocide. But according to Mark Meckler, president of Convention of States Foundation and Convention of States Action, COSA, Dobbs must be the beginning of a trend towards more federalism, not an isolated decision. Quote, the country is coming apart at the seams, and the fundamental reason, in my opinion, is a lack of federalism, Markler asserted. Quote, what I mean by this is whoever is in power in Washington, D.C., whether it's Republicans or Democrats, roughly 50% of the country is angry about everything that's happening. And I mean, even people that's not paying attention know that this is true. But quote, there's too much being decided in D.C., in the Washington bubble. I would add, and the way we solve the discord and calm everything down is to take the power away from D.C. and give it back to the states. Then we can debate these issues in the states where it's always intended to be done. He added, Dobbs has put the issue of abortion squarely back in the hands of state legislators. According to Meckler, we need more issues sent back to the states to ease the pressure valve. Georgia can be Georgia and hold its election leaders accountable. California can paint an airplane pink and fly all over the country, picking up abortion tourists if it likes. On a national level, abortion just ceased to be a wedge issue. For the foreseeable future, it will be hard to fundraise off it or campaign on it for federal office, because so much power has consolidated in the nation's capital, starting with the reinterpretation of the Commerce Clause under FDR. Almost every issue is becoming a national tug of war. Quote, it's not just every election, Meckler noted. It's every Supreme Court nomination. The Supreme Court now is the ultimate decider. So every time you have a Supreme Court justice being nominated, there's going to be a political nuclear war. Returning to a more expansive view of the 10th Amendment, where all but express powers return to the states, would return Supreme Court confirmations to a legitimate measure of competence. That is something many of us have never seen since Robert Bork's name became a verb in the late 1980s. Quote, I call what is going on in the country right now the great decoupling. The country will come apart no matter what Meckler predicted. The question is, how does it come apart? Does it come apart violently? Are people talking secession and civil war, or do it in a civil way? The way you do it civilly is that you simply go back to the way that it worked. Meckler believes that since World War II, the United States has operated under what he calls a veneer of unity, inconsistent with our history. The states cooperated to address existential threats between the Revolutionary War and World War II, but people lived as a large, diverse group of loosely knit states in a republic, and that's a great point right there. We're not a democracy; we're a constitutional republic. You know, we have senators that bring about legislation and all this other stuff, and the House votes on it. It's not a direct democracy. We're not really a democracy, but the founders were not a group of like-minded individuals, and in many cases, really disliked one another. They realized they needed to cooperate to address the threats from England, France, and Native American tribes and Spain. They set up a federalist system to peacefully coexist and come together for specific purposes when required. That changed during World War II. The entire nation faced an existential threat with the spirit of national unity not seen since the Revolutionary War. Women entered the workforce together. Everyone knew someone who was serving or had died in battle. The nation sacrificed, recycled, scrapped, and tended victory gardens together. When the troops came home, the country started to govern more from the federal level, ignoring the history of federalism. The federal agency started by Woodrow Wilson and FDR increased in number and consolidated power. By the 1950s, the nation's media emerged, reinforcing a veneer of unity. Then national retail chains appeared, and we started eating the same food, watching the same entertainment, and cheering our favorite teams in national sports leagues. The feeling of unity began to crumble with the radical anti war, anti American movement of the 1960s. Our social schisms began during the contentious and violent period and have never gone away. Yet, power continued to consolidate in Washington, D.C. through an ever expanding administrative state run by the Oval Office. We have existential threats today in China, Russia, a failed state and international criminal organizations on our southern border, and Islamofascism. According to Meckler, to release the pressure and resentment building in the country and deal with these threats internationally, the nation needs to run to a federalist approach to governance quickly. Fortunately, he feels the court's current composition can aid in that process. Quote, I expect over the next couple of terms, we will see an end to Chevron difference. We have a Supreme Court that is hostile to the administrative state, which is an extraordinary positive development, Meckler observed. The very essence of the administrative state is anti federalism. One size fits all solutions come straight from unelected bureaucrats in D.C. In Meckler's opinion, most federal agencies have no constitutional basis and contribute to the ideological tug of war in the country today. And I agree with that. And we've seen how the administrative state came after a sitting president. And back when he was just a candidate, we've seen how they can turn their powers, what happens when they turn their powers on an individual. Someone as powerful as the president of the United States. So you can't trust these people altogether. That's why they hate nationalism. That's why they hate populism, because they don't want the people to have the power. They want the administrative state to have and wield all of the power. The carrots are getting harder to swallow and the sticks are getting bigger. Quote, these agencies are broadening their own powers because of the administration directs them to do things like impose transgenderism on local schools by depriving kids of food. Meckler added. Luckily, he thinks SCOTUS has shown hostility to that kind of bureaucratic overreach in their vaccine mandate decision and limitations the court already placed on the Chevron doctrine. The decisions in Dobbs reinforces his views that this court will make decisions that support federalism by sending issues back to the states that belong there according to the Constitution and limiting executive agency power. With states threatening to ignore the decisions of SCOTUS, staff leaking rulings in advance to sway the justices, and President Biden and the DOJ openly objecting to recent decisions, radical federalism can't get here fast enough. But let me know what you think. Leave comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out themarkrepublics.com for the latest news. Until next time, peace.